of Chakmah, Choter. We are continuing to review what King Daud, the Messiah and Son of God, our Savior, wrote about the Choter when he first introduced him to Israel 3,000 years ago. It was in a mashal, which is a proverb or word picture, that he was the first to write of him. The second to write of him would come 300 years later when Yeshayah devoted the entire 11th chapter to presenting the attributes and purpose of this individual who serves as a stem off the main branch, a sucker to give new life to the fallen stump that is Israel, as well as a rod of divine judgment to hold those who have abused God's people accountable. He is among the more interesting people in the whole of the prophets, recognizing that Daud, in addition to being the king of Israel and the anointed Messiah, was also a prophet of the first order, and that his role is to awaken Israel before Daud returns, so that God's people are prepared for the return of their king. Well, do you want down, Wookie? I think you do, as opposed to being in the show. Well, we'll hold you here for a second and see how that works out for you. So, returning to the 14th Mizmor, which is the one that Daud dedicated to the life and times of the Choter. He was far from being done describing him. He paints him using yet another title, this one comprised of one of my favorite Hebrew words. He wrote, in the determination and judgment, the thinking and consideration, the disposition and inclination, indeed the attitude and motivations of the Bien, the man with understanding, who uses reasoned connections to provide insights. Bien, one who perceives, who discerns, who comprehends through rational associations and prudent considerations. Wookie, I think I'm going to have to send you down because you're way too interested in that doggy and the other video screen. All right, so Wookie is going to go over and play producer as opposed to co-host. But that's the way it goes. It's tough to find good talent. So he says, in determination and judgment of the Bien, the man with understanding, using reason connections to provide insights, intellectual dexterity, disciplined thinking, and the capacity for wisdom, that he will settle and reside an ongoing spiritual alliance. Nuach, he will be restored and rest. Call imperfect, third person, feminine, addressing the Chakmah, which is singular, this Chakmah Choter. Well, that's a lot to say about this man, and he was not finished even in this statement. He would continue. This makes Yada known and respected, even among the insolent and the rebellious, the shameless and the stupid, the dullards without understanding. It is Mashal, word pictures, 1433. Well, that's a lot to process. It is difficult recognizing that the man that Daud is writing about to the Choter is myself. I'm the only one who even remotely qualifies for this position, and we are absolutely running out of time for future candidates. I have been at this now 24 years. I've written the 35 books that you see behind me on the shelf. I've done over 300 hours of live broadcasts as part of the YAHOWAH blog. I've done 10,000 hours of talk radio presentations over the years. I've written the most comprehensive denunciation of the Islamic religion and goddamn religion, the most comprehensive denunciation of Christianity and Twistianity. I have exposed and condemned false prophets and even Jewish sages in my books on Babel. And on top of that, there's another 25 that are devoted to translating the Dead Sea Scrolls in an amplified fashion and then commenting on them so that you would know the truth about God, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. There's a lot that has gone on to this. I have invested over 100,000 hours over these last 24 years to prepare for what is to come. And it is a big deal to Dode, which is why he uses such high praise to address the intellect of this man. And that is because without the Choter, there is no return of Dode, no even return of God. There is no Shabuah harvest, no Towrah harvest, no sacrifice of the red heifer, no restoration of the adulterous woman. There is no homecoming on Yom Kippurim. There is no return to the garden on Sukkah. Life on this planet will come to an end. That's what's at stake. They've said it. It's obvious. The fact is that from the time that Dode wrote these words in 3000 Yah, which was just prior to 1000 BCE, and the time that the last of the prophets would comment upon him, which was around 450 BCE, thereafter, not a single person understood what Dode had said. They didn't recognize that he had written a first-person account of how he would suffer crucifixion to fulfill Passover. They did not know that he had volunteered to fulfill matzah to perfect the covenant children by carrying our guilt into Sheol, where it would never be seen again, using his soul to do so. They did not recognize that he would live 3 lives, 2 of which are now in our past. One was still in his future as he wrote these words about the Choter, recognizing that while he would make those sacrifices as the Passover lamb, as the one who fulfilled matzah, taking our guilt into Sheol on his soul to deposit it there, that not one among his brethren would recognize what he had done. In fact, from the time that he actually fulfilled these prophecies regarding Pesach, Matzah, and Bakorim, until Yahweh asked me to intervene in this role as the Choter, not a single Jew, not a single person on earth recognized Dode as the Messiah, the Son of God, our Savior, the returning King, who told us he would arrive in 33 CE to fulfill Passover, unyeasted bread, and firstborn children, or that he did so. Not one. And without that recognition, without understanding the timeline, without understanding where we are in the fulfillment of the Moed Mikra and what is to come, and how Yisrael returns to Yahweh with a final remnant prepared by the red heifer, it's all for naught. It says as much in Yirmiyah as it does in Zechariah, as it does in Malachi. And so, while it now appears to me, looking back on it, that everyone should have been able to ascertain that Dode described his future death as the Passover lamb and his second life through crucifixion, writing about it in first person, that he explained in the 22nd and 88th Mizmor, as well as the first 30 Mizmor, that he was going to do this on our behalf. And then he wrote the eyewitness accounts of it 1,000 years in advance. And that Yeshayah spoke all about it and of him, as did Samuel. That it should have been relatively straightforward for anyone to do as I have done. The evidence is all there. It's not hidden. It's obvious. And to recognize that there was no Jesus Christ, that is a complete imposter, a product of identity theft, someone who stole Dode's identity and his accolades. Not Jesus didn't steal them. He never existed. But Paul stole them on behalf of the others in his gang, Peter, um, Luke, Mark, and collectively, they all pursued this great act of criminality and identity theft to create a counterfeit of Dowd. And again, while it's obvious when one reads the Christian New Testament that it is wholly fraudulent, that's why I have 5 volumes disproving it. No one had ever disproved it by comparing Yahowah's statements to what the Christian authors wrote to show that they are not even remotely the same. But I did over the course of 5 volumes, clearing the way for the truth to be seen again by eliminating the myth. And for having done so, even though I now look at it and say, well, it should have been obvious, it wasn't obvious to anyone. And that is why Dowd is saying it's with the determination and judgment, the disposition and inclination of being the bien, the man of understanding, the one who made the reason connections to provide these profound insights about what Yahowah and Dowd had achieved. Even when we speak of Yahowah, you have to be bien to properly pronounce his name. Not difficult. He gave us all the clues. He told us it was based on the verb haya, which has 2 of the 3 letters in his name are in haya, and no one disputes how to pronounce haya. And the book in which all of it was presented to us, where his name was given to us, is called the Torah. And the O in Torah is from the only other letter, the Wah. It should not have been difficult, but yet it must have been, because no one prior to me realized that it was Yahowah or proved it as such. And so Dowd is affirming that I have exercised good judgment and used reason connections to understand and then share these insights. He calls it Chakmah. And Chakmah is intellectual dexterity. It is having a disciplined process of analyzing information and the capacity to comprehend. I've said many times that you don't know until you know. And then once you know, you're in a position to understand. Well, that is the process here. You develop a basis of knowledge by translating Yahowah's testimony out of the oldest extant sources and amplifying the meaning of every word, then considering the context it was revealed in and making the connections to everything else God had to say, so that you can put the entire portrait from beginning to end, from the garden back to the garden, in focus. And you could understand everything that God is conveying to us, including the center act of this play that God has presented, which is the role of his son in fulfilling the first 3 Moed Mikre in year 4000, the first 3 Moed Mikre in year 3000 Yah. And so it is with good judgment and by making reason connections to comprehend, showing intellectual dexterity and disciplined thinking, that ultimately the man of bien is going to settle the ongoing spiritual difference and form a spiritual alliance to restore the long rest that we call the celebration of Sukkah for God's people. And this man, he has a name according to both Yashayah, who speaks of the Choter, and Dowd, who introduces him. His name is Yada. This makes Yada known, causes him to be respected. Chakmah is how Yada understands and becomes known and acknowledged, even among the most insolent and rebellious, currently speaking of God's people. And it's even true that of those who would oppose me, they know that my name is Yada. They know that I am the Choter of which Dode and Yahowah spoke. They know I have uncommon bien, understanding. It's still will be rebellious, embittered, because, well, they want the credit of being able to speak for God too. I don't think they have any appreciation of what that entails, however. And this particular role, in my case, it was 12 to 14 hours a day, 6 to 7 days a week for 24 years. Not only without financial compensation, but I've contributed more about $1 million towards this on your behalf. Happy to do it. Enjoyed the process. Learned a great deal along the way. I've shared what I have come to know. Even the books are available in their entirety free online and royalty free through the printed sources like Amazon. But that's what it took. That's an enormous amount of time and an enormous library of knowledge to back it up, proof to show that it's true. And, in all of that time, there hasn't been a moment of wavering. And so it's not just that you have to have this reservoir of books of which no one else has any, much less this vast number, some 35, based upon translations of the oldest manuscripts and insights derived from them. And you have to have lots of insights, and I have tens of thousands of them that previously unheralded, never conceived or shared in human history. And so there is a lot. And then you even then have to go beyond that and say, you've got to be the person who makes the connections to understand all of this. You have to be the person who figured out that Dode is the Messiah, the Son of God, the person who came in his second of 3 lives in 33 CE, as he foretold through Daniel, to the very exact date to fulfill Chakmah. It's the greatest discovery in human history, proving that I am that guy. I made it. I'm sharing it with you. No one else can take credit for it. And of course, then they have no idea what more it entails, or they do, but don't want to deal with the fact that the Choter is ultimately one of the 2 people whose sacrifice matters for Israel. Just like Dode laid down his corporeal Bashar body to fulfill Pesach, I will lay down mine on Towrah to perfect the adulterous woman so that she is ready to be betrothed to her returning king. So that is it's a lot to process. It's a lot to ponder. It's a lot of responsibility. And, we learned earlier when dealing with the previous statement, when I think it's like the 4th statement and the 14th mashal. Dode uses 2 terms to describe the Choter as a bull, which is the role of the sacrifice of the Adamah Parah, by the way. And he says, without that bull, the covenant crib's empty. The manger for the flock has no sheep. So there's a lot writing on this. So the one man who Yahowah acknowledged was after his Leb has made Leb the determining factor, this sense of determination and judgment that the Bin, one who makes the connections to understand, would cause him to be Chakmah, intellectually dexterous, as a wise and disciplined thinker, the one who is able to put it all together and share the entire story from beginning to end. He even foretold that the Ruach spirit of Chakmah, wisdom and intelligence, would nuach, settle upon and reside spiritually in alliance with Yada, the one who knows and acknowledges these very things. Well, I appreciate the answers now that we have canvassed the great treasures of Dode's 14th Mashal, and I have no more questions. However, just to make sure that we would all come to the same conclusion, all in time to capitalize on what the Chakmah Choter is offering as Yada, by being Sadak, Yahweh inspired this bien insight. Being right, just, and vindicating, Sadaka, causes this goy to be lifted up and exalted, to grow, rise, and be extolled. Room, goy. To be a Gentile who is raised on high and uplifted so he can contribute, even to be presented as a sacrificial offering. And the poel imperfect, where the goy endures the effect of being raised and extolled, even while serving as an atoning offering for purification and cleansing for those missing the way, out of loyal love, great devotion, and tremendous kindness, to favorably benefit a shameful people enraged by their archaic culture. Leom. Mashal Word Pictures, 1434. This mashal is unique. Not only unique in that it's only one of two places that is devoted to the introduction and explanation of the Choter, who he is, how he will operate, when he will deliver the goods in this case. But it is unique in that it is like the 89th Mashal, Mizmor, or song, the psalm that Yahweh wrote on behalf of his beloved son. When you're reading the 89th Mizmor, the lyrics that Yahweh wrote on behalf of Dod, to tell us that he was his son, that he was the Messiah, that he was our Savior, that he was the returning King, his beloved, his chosen one. Every line that God wrote hits you right in the heart. It's just one exclamation point after another. It's emotionally and intellectually brilliant. And one of the closest things to it is what Dode wrote of the Choter, his herald, the man who reintroduces him to his people in the 14th Mashal word picture. Every last line is a bullseye to both brain and heart. And here we go from this bien, Chakmah, being Yada, to us learning that from Dode and Yahweh's perspective, not only is he right, but he is one in tens of billions of people. He's a goy who is right. The Choter is a goy. The man who Yahweh says through Yashayah was given 7 spirits, the 7 spirits of Yahweh, of Chakmah being the first of them, and Bien being the second. Here, both of them re-emphasized in this statement. It begins with, well, the first is the Spirit of Yahweh, so that you would actually know Yahweh's name, and you know who you're working for and with. And the second and third are the Ruach of Chakmah and Bien. And what do we have here? Bien and Chakmah. It was also this Spirit that would provide counsel and advice regarding the entire portrait that God had painted from beginning to end of the attribute. Well, there's two attributes that make Dode. First of them is Sadak. So Dode is saying here that we share Sadak in common. We're both right and vindicating when it comes to God. But in addition to that, Yashaya would say that the Choter has the Ruach of Gabor. And Gabor is the other attribute that makes Dode so exemplary. Yes, even Leb is one of those. He was the man after God's heart. But Gabor is why Dode received the name Gaborel, the most passionate, intense, capable, and courageous man of God. He's the one who spoke to Daniel, telling him exactly when he would arrive to fulfill Pesach, Matzah, and Bakodim. And so in saying these things, we find that the lesser luminary, reflecting the greater luminary's light, is reflective not only of what Dode has said, but of who Dode is. Like Dode, his heart is similar. His Bien understanding is similar. His Chakmah wisdom is similar. He is similarly Sadaka. He is similarly Gabor. He is similarly a counselor, giving advice on behalf of God. All of these things come together in this one individual on behalf of the other individual. Dode David, he is the star of the show. He is the returning king. He is our savior. He is the anointed Messiah. He is the firstborn son of God. He is the chosen one. But nobody knows it. And so God inspired a Choter, who Dode, of course, got to introduce to the world, who was going to restore Dode's stature to his people. So with that, what I have come to know of him as the Messiah and the Son of God, the actual Messiah and the actual Son of God, who actually saved us by arriving in 33 to actually be crucified to fulfill Pesach. And who is the one that God called out by name and saying that he is returning as king? That one. It's my job to herald his return and to do so such that his people, Yisrael, are aware of who he is and know that the false messiahs of Jesus, Iesu Christu, and Bar Kokhba are nothing but replacements, substitutions for the man who actually served in that capacity. And in this way, not only was Dode right about God and vindicating, but his Choter, his herald, is right about him and the fact that he is vindicating. And all of the things we have read. We go back to the presentation, and we'll return to it momentarily, of David's son, Solomon, introducing Israel in the last days to the Nakri, who is an observant foreigner, not of your people, Yisrael, the Goy. And here in the introduction of Goy to Yisrael, in the 14th Mashal word picture, Dode tells us that this man is not only right and vindicating, he is not only Chakmah, wise, he is not only Bien, a man of understanding, who is Sadak, right, the bull, who will fill the cradle that is the covenant family by fulfilling Towrah, whose name is Yada, but that he's a Goy. Process that, Israel. Your king, the ultimate Yehud, the exemplar of Yisrael, the man who united Yisrael, who built the city of Dod as the capital of Yisrael, the one who acquired the Temple Mount for the home for Yahweh's name, the covenant family home to be built, the one who waged 66 defensive battles to protect Yisrael, the one that Yahweh chose, the Messiah, the one who with a single stone took down the Philistine, just as he will take down all of those who call themselves Palestinians with less than a stone with a word of his mouth. That's Dode. He has called the one who will reintroduce him to his people a Goy. And if that were not profound enough, and on a 1 to 10 scale of what we have just read in these last two statements, it's a 100 on a 1 to 10 scale. It might even be a 10 gazillion on a 1 to 10 scale. He then says this same man, the Choter, this Goy named Yada, is going to serve as an atoning sacrifice, an offering for purification and cleansing for those who have missed the way. He's speaking of the role of the Choter as the Adam of Parah, fulfilling Bamidbar, Numbers 19, on behalf of Numbers 5 and the adulterous woman, who is that shameful one who must be cleansed prior to Dode's return with Yahweh on Yom Kippurim. Yes, according to the actual Messiah and Son of God, the King of Yisrael, it is a Goy who is right, who will make the atoning sacrifice to save the final remnant of God's people. Doing so on Towrah in year 6000 Yah, the 24th of September, a Shabat, of course, when God does his best work. To the backdrop of a full solar eclipse, the one time when the moon actually takes precedence over the sun, with the sun representing Dode as the greater luminary and the moon representing Yada, the Choter, as the lesser luminary, reflecting the greater luminary's light. On a cleansed Temple Mount, overlooking the Mount of Olives as a stadium for the remnant of Yisrael to witness. Elias, the master of ceremonies, name has been corrupted to Elijah, means Yahweh's God. Reprising what he did 40 millennia, or 40 Yobel, which is 2,000 years, 888 years in addition to the 40 Yobel, with 8 representing infinity. and the Yobel representing the times that our debts are forgiven. We're liberated. We return to the land. That at that time, 2,888 years after he first performed the sacrifice of the bull, where Yahweh ignited the flames of the timbers that had been doused in water to expose and condemn and eliminate the religious and political influences in Israel. Yah will perform exactly in that same role, and Yahweh will provide the waters to cleanse his people and the flames to purge them. Yes, indeed, the Choter is the bull who fills the manger and the crib of the covenant family, who is the one that Dode says the honor of a king is in his people, and returns his people to him. But the sacrifice he will make is the Adam of Parah, the bloody red man of Edom, on Towrah 10 days before Dode's return. Dode saw it all. He's a prophet. He foresaw it all, and he's told you about it. How you respond to it is up to you. Even while serving as an atoning sacrifice for the purification and cleansing of those missing the way. Doing so out of loyal love, great devotion, and tremendous kindness to favorably benefit the shameful chesed, which is based on 4Q Proverbs, where there is some confusion over whether the concluding deleth may be a rosh. So if so, chata'ah would have to be rendered using its darker definition of missing the way, while it becomes chasir, diminishes. The people estranged by their acronic culture, Leom. Leom speaks of those who are led astray by either political or religious influences, and that those political and religious influences are archaic, old, unchanged, as the case is of particularly with Judaism. And Jews celebrate their culture more than any other people probably in the history of the world. I wish they celebrated their ethnicity and their covenant relationship with Yahweh instead, but they are who they are. This is Mashal Word Pictures, 1434. The most important part of my mission is to be tzedakah, to be right about Yahweh and Dode. This is what causes this goyim to grow and rise in stature. Being right about God is exceedingly rare. And so when somebody is right about God, God pays attention. He is tzedakah, vindicating, because he chata'ah. He serves as an atoning offering for the purification and cleansing of those who had missed the way. It is an act of great chesed, devotion, a demonstration and projection of a father's chesed, love for his people. Those who will have been leom, estranged by the archaic culture of their religion, will give it up. And they will be reconciled on Towrah 10 days in advance of Kippurim in year 6,000 Yah. I hesitated there a bit because I was dealing with a post. I think it was on Facebook on my feed, and I presented it also on X. Could have come from either one of the two places, where they were talking about the timing of various events, including the timing of the dedication of what they called the temple. It's the house for Yahweh's name, the Be'eth Shem Yahweh, which actually was begun in year 3000 Yah, 968 BCE. It was when the cornerstone was laid, and the cornerstone was commemorated by Yahweh through the 89th Mizmor Psalm, the Song of David. And 7 years later is when the house for Yahweh's name was completed, with the dedication speech provided by Solomon, who introduced the Choter, which says virtually the same things about this individual that Dode would write here about the Choter. Introduces the Nakri in that one versus the Choter, but the presentation, other than title, are identical, and even the titles overlap because the Nakri is an observant foreigner. And here we know that this person is a highly observant Goya. Same individual. And the reason I said that was important, because once you know that 968 BCE, the cornerstone being set of the house for Yahweh's name, and the revelation of the 89th Mizmor song, the greatest lyrics ever scribed about the greatest man who ever lived, and you know that that is year 3000 Yah, then you know that when Dode told Daniel and us through him that he would arrive in Chakmah to fulfill Chakmah in what is 33 CE, telling us the very date of Chakmah in 33 CE, 1,000 years thereafter, that we are now at year 4000 Yah. And if year 4000 Yah is 33 CE and 968 BCE is year 3000 Yah, then it isn't hard to deduce what is year 6000 Yah, or when the last three Moed Mikre will be fulfilled in year 6000 Yah, which is obviously 2033, and therefore Towrah, on the day of Towrah, the 24th of September in 2033. Kippurim, the day of the homecoming, occurring at 6:22 p.m. sunset in Jerusalem on October 2nd, 2033. 5 days later being Sukkot, our return to the Garden of Eden. October 7th, exactly 10 years to the day of the great October 7th invasion by Muslims, the desecration of Israel and Jews. When you know the dates, then you know the timeline, you know what's coming, you know what you need to do to be prepared. And even backdating from this, we know that Shabuah means 7 sevens. It is a celebration of the Shabat and of 7, the promise of 7. We know that the time of Jacob's troubles is 7 years. Dode told us as much in the same speech that he provided to Daniel when he foretold 700 years in advance of exactly when he would arrive in Jerusalem in 33 CE to fill Chakmah. He told us that there would be a 7-year period that would be the time of Jacob's troubles. And when you subtract 7 years from 2033, what do you get? 2026, don't you? And what would be the only unfulfilled Moed Mikre at that point, recognizing that the first 3 were fulfilled in year 4000 Yah, and the last 3 will be fulfilled in year 6000 Yah. So 7 years before that, what is the one in the center of the menorah over there? It's Shabuah, isn't it? Even called 7 years before year 6000 Yah in 2033. That would be a May 22nd, also a Shabbat in that year. And then you can put the pieces together, because Yashayah in the 17th chapter told us explicitly that concurrent with the Shabuah harvest, Israel's going to be thinned at the waist and become indefensible as a result. And then goes on to describe America in some 40 different attributes, to say that it is America's responsibility ultimately for thinning Israel at the waist, which is why it was so easy for me to deduce that since that is going to occur on the 22nd of September, or 22nd of May in 2026, in the fulfillment of Shabuah, and that it's concurrent with Israel having its heart ripped out by America, that it is Donald Trump that is the next Neville Chamberlain. The prophets have spoken. They have never been wrong. And now, Israel, you know your fate. You know when these things are going to occur. You can be prepared. Well, it is astonishing in the pronouncement of what Dowd would have to say about the role that I would be asked to fulfill on behalf of Yisrael and Yehudim. It's a tough audience, of course. You don't get any applause when you're playing to this crowd. Yahweh didn't get any recognition. Moshe was abused by them. Dowd has been spit on and ignored by them. So it is a tough crowd. And if the two greatest Israelites of all time, Moshe and Dowd, couldn't earn their respect, and if God, leading them out of slavery in Mitzrayim and revealing the Torah to them and speaking directly to them in first person in their midst, revealing himself to them, couldn't earn their respect, and instead was told to shut up and go away, that they never wanted to see him again, it's a tough damn order for a goy to fill. Even with the seven spirits of Yahweh, even if he's got Chakmah, even if he is Bien, even though he is Sadak, right. And make no mistake, other than the support of Yahweh and the members now of the covenant family that are rallying around this cause and trying to help amplify this message so that it is received by you, I'm alone in this effort. It's the way Yahweh wanted it. One voice against the world. One voice to get the attention of his people. He told Israel that he was disappearing and that he was returning to Shamaim because they were irascible. They were impossible to be around. That he was divorcing himself of them in Hosea around 700 BCE, 2,700 years ago. And he did not return until just 24 years ago to fulfill these prophecies regarding the Choter, the Nakri, the Bashar, Yada. And on your behalf. Question again, what are you going to do about it? I, of course, am devoted to staying the course. I'm playing to a tough audience. I'm going to be true to the calling. I am not going to disappoint. I am not going to cause my king any consternation. He has my full attention. And this is how he, therefore, concluded his portrait of me. Not for me, for you. The Ebed, subordinate, co-worker, and associate. You see, in this relationship, Dowd is Yahweh's foremost Ebed, co-worker. And I am the Ebed of Dowd. The Ebed, subordinate, co-worker, and associate. The official advisor and the one who serves, masculine singular. Sakal, the one with prudent insights, profound wisdom, and beneficial instructions which produce prosperity. Sakal, who understands and is intellectually skilled, is accepted and favored because he pleases and delights, so as to be desired and approved by the king. Proverbs 14:35. Wow. We know because Yahweh said so over and over again, and then wrote a song to underscore his commitment, that Yahweh loved Dod more than any other. He even called Dod, which means beloved. He even wove Dod's name into the name of his people, Yahud, Yahweh and Dod, Yahweh's beloved. And through it all, the man Yahweh loved has a man he loves. I was often accused very early on, when I came to recognize that Dod is the Messiah, that he is the Son of God, that he is the center of God's story to us, even before I knew that he had volunteered to fulfill Pesach, Matzah, and Bekorim, that I was so enthralled with Dod's brilliance and Yahweh's love for his son, that I was constantly accused of having a bromance with Dod. And now you see the reciprocal. He beat me to it by 3,000 years. The Ebed's subordinate co-worker and associate, Shakal, the one with prudent insights, profound wisdom, and beneficial instructions, which produce prosperity. He is accepted and favored because he pleases and delights and is approved by the king. The king is Dod. Now, Dod also has a king, Yahweh. And to please Dod is to please Yah. Of the Choter, this rod of divine judgment and branch of life named Yada, the one who knows, we have learned a great deal about Dod's Bashar, his human herald. This Nakar, observant foreigner, is again depicted here as a Goy, Gentile, even before Solomon introduced him as such. He is an Ed restoring witness. We're told that he is the final Zeroah, the one cultivating the harvest, as a Malach, a spiritually imbued messenger, serving as the Kol, the voice of God, and as Yahweh's Peh, mouth, with Bien, understanding. The Adam of Parah, bloody red man of the earth, who is a productive bull, is Ze Bomen Edom. He is the one coming out of Edom, who Yashayah affirms will save many wonderful Israelites. He also is serving as the Aleph and the Sor, the learned and observant bull who fills the manger and the crib. It was already an elaborate array of names, of titles, to which Dode either reinforces or has augmented throughout this mashal. But let's consider them, because this is the order that the King of Yisrael, the Messiah, Son of God, and our Savior, the ultimate shepherd, the chosen one, the chosen one, presented and wrote. Choter, a rod of divine justice, a stem off the main branch, a productive sucker from the fallen stump. Aleph, a learned and productive bull who increases 1,000-fold. Shor, an observant bull who cares for and helps others. Ed, the restoring witness to the eternal testimony. Bien, one who derives the proper connections to understand. Yada, one who knows, acknowledges, and comprehends. Ish Tob, the proper, productive, and good man. Arum, the prudent and discerning, sensible and disciplined, perceptive and judicious one. Chakmah, the intelligent one, who learns, understands, and then teaches, the wise and circumspect one. Mazimah, the one known for his discretion and his conclusions, his deliberations and resulting decisions. Chanan, the one who is generous and fortuitous. Bashahar, the human herald. Sadak, the correct and vindicating one. Abed, the subordinate co-worker and associate. Shakal, the one with prudent insights, profound wisdom, and beneficial instructions, producing prosperity. Say, well, since Leah, God's gift to me, asked me to include the following related citation. As we conclude this program, I will share it with you. But I'll tell you what, that's a lot to live up to. If you want to know why I'm motivated to get up before the sun, and I continue to work long after the sun sets, 7 days a week, without vacation, year after year. Now you know why. So then he returned to the man of God, he and all of those who had camped out with him. And when he arrived and stood before him in his presence, he said, "Behold." Now, with a sense of heightened awareness and considerable urgency, I recognize Yada, and that he knows and understands that it is certain there is no God in all of the earth except in Israel. And so now you are strongly encouraged to choose of your own accord to grasp hold of this blessing regarding the person bringing reconciliation and association with your coworker. Malachim, 2 Kings 5:15. We have finished the mashal, the word picture, written by our king, the prophet Dode, our Savior, the Son of God and Messiah, as chronicled in his 14th mashal word picture proverb. But we have just begun to explore what Yahweh wants his people to know about this man, the time that he will live, what it means to Yisrael to listen to him. And so in our next program, we will proceed with statements from the second to the last of the prophets, Zechariah. I am absolutely certain that you will find what Yahowah has to say riveting. And I look forward to sharing you those insights with you. I am Yada, the Choter, and this has been the 10th episode of Chakmah Choter in the YAHOWAH blog. Thank you for listening.